Our scripture reading this morning comes from 1 Peter chapter 1, beginning with the 13th verse. Therefore, prepare your minds for action. Be self-controlled. Set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy, because I am holy. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The children were all lined up at snack time at Vacation Bible School. As they got to the snack table, there was a big bowl of apples. And a note taped to the big bowl of apples. It said, take only one. God is watching. Well, as they went down the snack table, there were drinks and other things. And at the end of the snack table was a great big tray of chocolate chip cookies. Fresh baked, smell it great. And a little girl at the front of the line whipped out her crayon and a piece of paper and she wrote, take all you want. God's watching the apples. I think we all want God to be like, we're like that little girl. We want God not to notice some things. We want there to be times when God is not looking, will not see what we're doing, or we hope that there are times when God is distracted by something else and just isn't paying any attention to what we are doing. Well, we all know that's really wishful thinking, and it's not going to happen. We can be distracted. We can only see one thing at a time. But God is not like us, at least like in those ways. God is different. God can and does see all things all the time. God cannot be distracted and miss anything. That's because God really is different. The original meaning of the word in the Bible that we translate as holy has two meanings, like many English words. The first word and the most common one in biblical usage is different. The other one is set aside. So when we hear the word holy in Scripture, we need to think different or set aside or both. In my English dictionary, when I look up holy, there is not one definition out of about 7 that does not include something about religion. You see, over the years, languages are a living thing and things change. Over time, words gather new meanings and lose old ones. You want to think about that? Think about the gay 90s in 1890 and the gay 90s in 1990. Gay's got a whole different meaning in only 100 years. Well, be ye holy because I am holy was spoken first to somebody 4,000 years ago. I reckon in a different language too. So I suppose that things have changed in the use of that word since then. Words are the bearers of our thoughts and our emotions. We use language to convey those things, thoughts, emotions, ideas. And if we do not agree on the meanings of the words, then strange things happen in our communication. When we read the Bible, the whole point of reading the Bible is so that we can allow God to communicate with us through God's written word. That as we read those words, we will hear God speaking to us. And since we don't read the original biblical language, does anybody read Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic in here? I don't think so. Me neither. So, a little Greek maybe, but none of the rest of them. And so it's important for us to know something about the words and what they meant to the writers. When God inspired these folks to write them down, what thought, idea, and emotion were they trying to convey to the people that read that stuff right then? Because that's the meaning we need to find. I say all that, that's a long way to go, to get to the fact that the words holy and holiness are big words, not in size, but in meaning. And they carry a lot of baggage. And not all of the baggage that these words carry is good. A lot of it is negative. A lot of times, you see, when people in the church and out think of some person as holy, we think of them as thinking of themselves as better than we are. Holier than that. And, oftentimes they act like they really do think that they're better than the rest of the world. That we are right, and you people are wrong, you got to get it right. Well, my suspicion is that that negative baggage has been earned by Christians over the 200 centuries, 20 centuries that it's been since Jesus was here. And even if that is how Christians have behaved, and if we have earned that reputation, that has absolutely nothing to do with what God intended when God actually said, be different because I am different. When we read that word holy, that's what we should see. Be different because I am different. Be different than even things of the same sort. Because you see, when God set this up, well, let's say this. When we think of holiness, be in this particular sense, be holy therefore because I'm holy. We think of be perfect therefore because I am perfect. How many of you hear that? When you hear that, be holy therefore as I am perfect, as I am holy. That we should be perfect because God is perfect, right? Wrong. God knows that we are just. God would not call us to be perfect in the way that God is perfect. It's not possible for us. God knows that. And so God does not set for us a bar that we cannot possibly jump. Okay? What God had in mind for us to be different. God is calling us to be different from the community around us. How hard is that? We grew up in this community. We grew up in this culture. It is not going to be easy for us to be different than everything we grew up around. It's hard because the community and the culture have shaped everything that we are. Allowing ourselves to be different, to be set aside for the work of God, is a significant undertaking. You see, God is different, and God is different because God is perfect. That's true. But that's not what God has in mind for us. Because God, when God said this first 4,000 years ago, God was just one God among many gods. As far as everybody else was concerned, there were gods of all sorts. Now, all those other gods were made out of rocks and gold, and some of them carved out of wood, and the gods themselves were nothing. They were just lumps of something or other. And the teachings of those gods, well, those teachings of those gods were the teachings of the priests in their temple. And I guarantee you one thing, that the teachings of those gods of wood and stone and gold and silver, all their teachings were really good, especially financially, for the priests in those temples. The priests enjoyed wealth and power in their communities because the preachings of their God were their teachings. And they had the power, because if God blesses you, things are good. And if you don't act like we tell you, God won't bless you. They held that over their heads. They had enormous power. Our God is different from all those other gods. For one thing, our God is alive. Our God is not a rock or a lump of gold, or a piece of carved wood. Our God is alive from forever in the past to forever in the future. Our God always has been and always will be. Our God is a living God. Our God is not like other gods. Our God is different. Our God is not just the God of the moon or the sun or wine or any of those other things that they had gods for. Our God is the God of everything, because God is the owner of everything. God created it all, God imagined it all, and God owns it all. Our God is active in the universe today. Our God hears and answers prayers. Sometimes the answer is no, and I don't like that. But our God hears and answers prayer. And our God inspires people. Our God inspires people to new achievements and better behavior than they even could imagine for themselves. As hard as we try to be good, we can't be very good without the inspiration, the direction, the guidance, and the strength that we receive from our God. Now, while all of those things, what we say about our God, seem normal for us, I mean, that's like old hat. Well, in some parts of the world today still, there are worshipped many gods, gods of all sorts of things. There are still polytheistic folks out there, and so it is still different to have one God who is the creator of all things. You know, in earlier times, Christians and Jews both were persecuted for being atheists because everybody else had a God that you could see. And our God was different. Our God was invisible. All-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-invisible. An invisible God was no God at all. We had to be atheists, and so we were persecuted as atheists. Convert to worship some God or other, or we're going to kill you. You know, our God is different. Always has been. God, in God's difference, calls us to be different too. And about that difference, Peter wrote these words, starting in verse 13. Therefore, prepare your minds for action. Be self-controlled. Set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. That first one is a dandy. Prepare your minds for action. He doesn't say, prepare yourself to believe in the resurrection from the dead. He didn't say, prepare your minds to believe anything. He said, prepare your mind for action. Maybe we should think of ourselves as action heroes. People who are willing to deny themselves to do exactly what they believe that God says is right. No matter what it costs them, no matter what the consequences, as long as we believe that Jesus Christ calls us to do these things, we should be ready to do them. And we should be ready to live out the love, the grace, the good news of Jesus Christ and share it with others both in word and deed. And Peter calls this good news, the grace to be given you when Jesus Christ is revealed. And that grace is the unmerited free gift of living life everlasting. The assurance that we're going to live life everlasting should embolden us to be real, live, witnessing, serving Christians. Peter also instructs us to be, nobody's going to like this. Peter instructs us to be obedient children. How many times did our parents tell you, grow up? Here, God, through Peter, says, be obedient children. Not conforming to evil desires. You know, it doesn't have to be killing and stealing to be an evil desire. Putting our wants above our tithe is an evil desire. Wanting a new house, a new phone. How many of us got new phones? iPhone, Windows phone, Android phone. Wanting a new house, new phone, new iPad, new car, new truck, or new tractor because our neighbors have one, not because we need one, is an evil desire. God calls us to get past those desires and be obedient to the teachings of Jesus Christ. When we are obedient to Jesus Christ, we are kind to more than old people, kids, and dogs. We are kind when we are obedient to Jesus Christ to everybody, especially people who hate us and want to kill us. We are kind to them. When we are obedient to Jesus Christ, we are over our wants. When we are obedient to Jesus, we do weird things. We lend things and money to people without ever expecting to get it back. If you haven't lent something to somebody and never got it back and been disappointed in that, raise your hand. Get over it. Lend it like you never expect to see it again, and if it comes back home, thank God for the blessing. When we are obedient to Jesus, we talk about our faith with anybody who will listen. Not just the people we know from church. Not just the folks in our Sunday school class or our Bible study or our youth group or our women's group or whatever group. Not just those people. When we are obedient to Jesus Christ, we will talk about the good news to anybody who will listen. When we're obedient to Jesus, we're different. We don't have to be perfect to be holy, but we sure do have to be different.